What happens when you take a beloved independent horror movie featuring a biting satire on commerce and remake it with a big Hollywood studio? When you hire the guy who wrote the Scooby Doo movie to write and a music video director with no feature film experience to direct? It's a story that features getting down with the sickness, both literally and figuratively. It also features running zombies, a zombie baby, one of the greatest opening sequences in horror history, and a surprisingly awesome addition to the weird mid-2000s of remake-obsessed horror. This is what the f*** happened to Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. Though 2002 carried with it both the groundbreaking 28 Days Later and the more action-driven dawn of the Resident Evil franchise, producer Eric Newman wanted even more. A self-admitted fan of the zombie genre, Newman had a particular affinity for George Romero's legendary Dawn of the Dead. He wasn't interested in a soulless remake cash grab, but rather had the purest of intentions. He wanted to take the ideas and genius of the Romero classic and share the beauty of his favorite zombie film with a new generation, backed with not only talent, but the pockets of a major Hollywood studio. Newman paired with like-minded and more experienced producer Mark Abraham, who already had films such as Air Force One under his producing belt. This experience was the only thing that kept the rights holder of the original Dawn of the Dead, Richard Rubinstein, from telling them to get off his plane.
Get off my plane.
Rubinstein had turned down offers before, believing that the reason Romero was so successful in his endeavors was the lack of dealing with modern studio interference. While he found Newman to be heartfelt, he was worried that throughout the process, a bigger budget remake might lose its way. It was the track record of Abraham that eventually gave him faith that they'd be able to see their vision through, and a deal was made.
Is everyone there dead?
Dead-ish.
Perhaps the key to all of this was the fact that Newman and company were smart enough to realize that there was no reason to make a shot-for-shot remake of Romero's film. It was, after all, already on horror movie fan shelves everywhere and perfectly fine just as it was. The group instead wanted to do what John Carpenter had done for The Thing and attempt to build upon the ideas of the original for a new generation. But first, they needed to find a writer that could keep Romero's core elements true to the film amidst all the modern upgrades that they'd be affording the project. Enter the man who currently helps control the entirety of the DC universe, James Gunn.
Hey everybody, I'm James Gunn.
But not in 2004. At the time, the Guardians of the Galaxy director had merely a handful of trauma credits, some uncredited writing on the 13 Ghosts remake, and, of all things, was the writer of the Scooby Doo movie. Gunn campaigned hard for the job, looking for a chance to work on a movie franchise that he'd long been a fan of, as well as the chance to do something a little more serious and thoughtful.
If I put my foot up your ass, would that be your problem?
Hey,
The script Gunn wrote impressed Universal Studios, who also agreed to come on board and really kick things into high gear. It was now time to find a director. While we all know the name Zack Snyder today for his own contributions to DC films, amongst others, at the time he was still looking for the right debut film to make after a successful stint directing and working cinematography on a handful of music videos. When Dawn of the Dead came across his desk, he knew he had finally found the script that he wanted to make his feature debut off of. Snyder had also been a huge fan of the original and attacked the project with a boyish enthusiasm, even storyboarding the entire film himself. His infectious excitement for the project even aided in recruiting cast members who may have otherwise been hesitant to join in on a mid-2000s zombie remake. You can see the results on screen where each dramatic moment feels ripped straight out of a comic book panel, in a good way. For the cast, the producers were steadfast that the true star of the film would be the title. They used this advantage not to skimp on the financials of paying a star actor. but to have freedom in selecting their actors based on how well they fit their roles. Sarah Polley and her agent were both shocked to see an offer for the role come across their desk. After all, the actress had never even logged a single frame in her independent film career, which required her to so much as run. Her select acting experience ended up being instrumental in helping ground the audience to a character, while the things happening around her were so surreal. Making her a relatable human being who works and goes home to watch reality TV in her suburban neighborhood really sets the tone of how kinetic an experience like this would be for the average human being.
Louis, what are you doing?
On her team against the Horde would be badass Ving Rhames as Officer Kenneth, a big, mean force of a human being that tries really hard not to care about other human beings, but often fails.
Please, there's people here right now could use your help.
Y'all.
Rhames brought not only the old-school physicality that fits into this over-the-top world, but the acting experience and prowess to make him believable. It's also fun to realize that both Dawn of the Dead and Shaun of the Dead released in 2004, each of them all-time zombie films, and each of them featuring one of Ethan Hunt's best Mission Impossible friends in important roles.
Pete! Alright, prank!
Speaking of Tom Cruise, the crew also hired his Born on the 4th of July co-star Jake Weber to play Michael, the guy who really wants to be Tom Cruise in this story. Where most actors audition for the role with a straight-up macho persona, Weber impressed the production by better playing the role with the nuance of an everyman
I sell televisions at Best Buy.
who just happens to be good when the crap hits the fan. The kind of guy who has never had to knock on wood, but knows someone who has, and wonders if he could. Mekhi Phifer, fresh off his role as Future in Eminem's 8 Mile, is Andre, a guy with a shady past trying to do right by his pregnant wife. Turns out a little too right, because I feel like delivering a gosh darn zombie baby in a freshly post-apocalyptic place of commerce wasn't cool at all. But like all zombie movies, it brought up a really good, what the hell are we supposed to do in this situation, moment of existential crisis. And who can forget that they cast the lovable and charming dope from Modern Family, Ty Burrell,
I'm betting these babies are coming back in a big way. Buy low, sell high.
as the super jerk of the group, Steve. It always amazes me to see him play this role after seeing him as Phil Dunphy for so many years, but it totally works. We still laughed at him, we just wanted to punch him in the face now. Also, if we're playing the celebrity lookalike shooting game, Zombie Steven would have made for a great Jim Carrey as the cable guy. This all even before you get to the acting talents of House of Cards actor Michael Kelly as an ultra-douche security guard with all the mental complexes,
Is there a restaurant?
No, you're staying here.
or the must-have cameos of all-time special effects artist Tom Savini, or horror legend Ken Foree, each of which of course starred in the original classic. Just for fun, if you pay close attention during the nasty end credits, you'll also notice that A Nightmare on Elm Street alumni Heather Langenkamp was a member of the production crew as well. Because Langenkamp is married to Academy Award-winning special effects guru David Leroy Anderson, who brought with him experience on everything from Pet Sematary to Hot Shots Part 2 to The Set. Thank the movie gods, Snyder was keen to keep any up-close shots of his zombies practical instead of overdoing the CGI. Piggybacking off of 28 Days Later's Running Infected, the group then crafted zombies that were more of a threat for the. It's hard to be frightened by a slow-moving drool zombie when we've seen them run around like Barry Sanders in his prime. For the look of their quick and crispy dead, the special effects team scoured photos of crime scenes and various other gnarliness to make their zombies scientifically sound in their progressive decomposition. We see them becoming more and more gross as time passes in the film. The progression begins with fresh blood and pale skin. By the end, there are bones starting to show through their decaying skin, the blood turning black. They ended up using so much blood, in fact, that they had to craft a Cardo blood to quickly move the sticky stuff between sets. A crew of up to over 50 makeup artists at the time ended up crafting around 3,000 gnarly zombie applications when it was all said and done. That's not accounting for some peppered-in CGI zombies handled by VFX studio Mr. X Inc. Though they would have loved to find a functioning mall to shoot at in the Pittsburgh area to stay closer to their origins, it would prove to be too costly and inconvenient. They set out to Canada, where a soon-to-be-demolished mall in Toronto would be their central shooting location. They only had 8 weeks to construct a living, breathing mass shopping apparatus out of almost nothing. Though the 45,000 square foot space had to be a nightmare to transition to the upscale mall seen on the main floors, the rough look of the location's interiors only ended up adding to the grimy aesthetic of our characters' bleak situations. This was juxtaposed against the bright and fresh look of a working mall fountain or the hallowed grounds coffee shop, made for an interesting dichotomy that keeps the film feeling close to home. A credit to production designer Andrew Neskarami's willingness to always push things an extra step further, aided by the ever-energetic attitude of director Zack Snyder and the eye of Poltergeist DP Matthew F. Leonetti. When one thinks of the sounds of Dawn of the Dead apart from the ripping and tearing, your mind may immediately go to the ending credits sequence featuring Richard Cheese's cover of Disturbed's Down with the Sickness, or the score itself, provided by ex-composer Tyler Bates, scoring his first ever horror film. Bates made the gutsy decision to stray away from the classic Goblin score of the original, noting that it simply didn't fit with Snyder's version. Also included are, of course, the actual Disturbed song, as our survivors are ripped apart by island zombies, or in the fitting opening number by Johnny Cash. Many of the musical choices in the film were handpicked by Snyder, and he usually had a difficult time convincing the studio that they would work. Sound, guts, and all, Dawn of the Dead premiered on March 19th of 2004, boasting its hefty $26 million budget. The risk paid off in spades, and the Dead ruled the day, as it earned $27.3 million in the United States on its opening weekend. Dawn had made its budget back and had ended up making over $100 million by the time it was all said and done. For a mid-2000s zombie remake of all things, Dawn of the Dead received mostly favorable critical responses, alongside a B cinema score from moviegoers. It remains Zack Snyder's highest-rated film on Rotten Tomatoes to this day, at a clip of 77% fresh. Unfortunately, late legend George Romero wasn't a fan of the film, calling it a good action movie, but more of a video game than anything else. Also adding to the complaints that he wasn't a fan of the running zombies. While that no doubt hurts, Dawn of the Dead to this day remains one of the few Snyder films that most fans can agree on, and a banger of a zombie film overall. It even inspired a spiritual successor in Snyder's 2021 release Army of the Dead. And that, my friends, is what the happened to Dawn of the Dead.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.